there's a schism, a holy schism in new atheism. Are you familiar with like Alex O'Connor, Cosmic Skeptic?
Yes.
Rationality Rules, Stephen Woodward?
Yeah.
It's interesting because they're both atheists, and yet they've appeared to diverge utterly in where they're going. Like Alex O'Connor is basically like Jordan Peterson now. He's talking to John Vervaeke, and he's saying things that are literally verbatim, basically what Jordan Peterson said.
And I've always been struck by the fact, I shouldn't say always, I guess more recently in my life, been struck by the fact that for all the time we spend arguing about analytic philosophy and propositional logic and syllogisms, if you look into the places that are traditionally thought of as the centers of wisdom, you don't find propositional logic, you don't find syllogisms. What you find is something like narrative.
I always liked Alex O'Connor. I knew he was smart. He's a great guy, very charismatic. So obviously he was going to end up in the enlightened centrist Jordan Peterson camp. Stephen Woodford is like...
Is that rationality rules?
Yeah, rationality rules is like, well, sex isn't really a real thing and science is just a patriarchal institution. It's like...
People can simply declare, I am a woman, though I have a penis.
So like the reference to a penis is like, it's at best rhetoric and at worst it's just appealing to people's intuitions.
So what it indicates to me, it's an indication that rationality is purely a tool. Yes. This is exactly what Jordan Peterson had said from the beginning. Yes. Of science is a religious enterprise, in that there's no such thing as, well, I'm just going to observe the facts as they are, because you have to approach the set of facts with an a priori interpretive structure.
Yes.
So to just say, oh, well, rationality is a subjective process that will lead you to the same conclusion, that never happens. There's no evidence of that. It's never happened.
Mm-hmm.
And the new atheists are a good example of, at least the YouTube new atheists are a good example of that split. It's like, well, they're both rationalists. So I would love to see an Alex O'Connor versus Stephen Woodford debate about, trans issues and stuff, and whether or not sex is like a socially constructed category that, is all terminological and all this bullshit that the postmodernists put forward. It's all just, it's an indication to me that it's just, well, Alex O'Connor has these intuitions that lean slightly 1 degree to the left or right, let's say, and Stephen Woodward's intuitions lean 1 degree to the right. And so for a long time they were along the same track, but at a certain point, like a long enough distance, 1 degree off 1,000 miles from now puts you in a different location entirely, right? That's what rationality is. You're right. It's simply taking the axioms that you start with and rationalizing them.
Yeah, it's just
right?
a tool. It's just a tool that is totally dependent on your premises.
Right. So
and
Jordan Peterson is correct about science being a religious enterprise, right?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, tell me, based on what I just said, tell me why I'm wrong.
Well, because the way that and I think most people probably, but I'll just use myself, define religion is a belief in some kind of God and some kind of creator.
I don't believe that's how most people...
Okay, well, then if you want to talk about like any belief system is religion, which we've talked about this before, where your whole thing is like, well, every belief is a religious belief. Everything is religion. Then okay,
really, no.
If you want to say that...
I wouldn't say every belief is... If I say to you, people treat politics like a religion, you know exactly what I mean. It has nothing to do with higher powers.
Yeah, but you're not calling it a literal religion. You're comparing it to it insofar that they're
functionally equivalent in every possible way other than the surface noise of one claims to be appealing to a deity, the other appeals to some political
I would
ideology.
say the through line there, the analogy transfer is dogmatism and tribalism, is I would say where they overlap. So whenever you say that they treat it like a religion, I would agree, but I would say
sure
in the aspect of they treat it dogmatically and tribally.
Yes, but
so that's
an ideology that is pursued dogmatically is the axioms are pursued are accepted and protected and acted upon dogmatically, right? If it's like equality overall,
yes.
Racism is the ultimate thing. We're going to dogmatically pursue. Okay. Or the motherland or the fatherland or whatever. It's like you start with an axiom and then you pursue it dogmatically. It's all.
What is the functionality
this is my point.
in calling it all religion?
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Because it allows us to better diagnose political extremism as what it really is, which is more like religious extremism, which is why I think the whole conversation about policy is sometimes, often, completely irrelevant. To highlight when I say, well, yeah, all dogmatic belief systems are religious, essentially, or everyone is religious in that they have a set of fundamental axioms they operate by. Nobody defines religion that way. Okay. If a sports fan kills a fan from another team, literally kills them over their symbol, I would say those fans are more religious than 99.99% of Christians who go to church. And if you say, well, that's not how we define religion, I would say, okay, well, this is exactly my point, is their behavior is functionally religious. And in order to understand their behavior, you have to think about it in religious terms. That symbol of their sports team literally means as much to them as the cross or the Bible does to the religious Christians. And to say, well, we need to think about them differently. It's like, no. Because we need to use the understanding we have about how symbols affect religious people in the traditional sense to then transpose it onto political ideology or other ideologies.
Sure, I think that you can transfer the parts of the analogy that are transferable without calling it a religion.
Why? What's the harm?
I wouldn't.
Let me reverse the question on you.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm interrupting.
No, you're good.
I've been told I do that a lot.
Only sometimes.
Only sometimes. If I may, let me reverse the question on you. What is the downside of me and Jordan Peterson using religion in the way that each of us do?
The harm is that it equivalates. I can't talk. I've had too much iced tea. It equivocates, or it draws an equivalency between belief systems that are unfalsifiable and belief systems that are. It takes the idea of tribalism, and it says that because everybody's kind of tribalistic and dogmatic, then like every belief system is basically just like a religion. And I would just say, why not just keep the word religion to mean what we conventionally define it as, and then just acknowledge that with any belief system, humans have a tendency towards tribalism and dogmatism, because that's the meaningful part of that I would agree with you is useful to keep in mind, that people are drawn to, worshiping things, and they are drawn to idolizing things and joining a team and turning off their prefrontal cortex whenever they're in a mob of people and doing crazy stuff and like obsessing over things, and it becomes their identity. People are prone to doing that. If you want to call that religion, you can, but I would just say that religion is just one of the subsets or one of the manifestations of that broader human tendency that we do with any belief. And one of the things that we do that with happens to be religion, like Christianity or Judaism or Islam or Scientology. And also we do it with sports, and we do it with politics, and we do it. But there's a broader principle at play here. And it's probably just like a semantic thing, but I think that the danger is that I think that you should abstract out the commonality across these things, refer to that tendency or that behavioral pattern that humans have. I'm doing the Jordan Peterson thing now. You have to talk about the highest structure. No, we should abstract out that commonality and then stack them in a hierarchy of, okay, here is the thing that humans do, and here's the areas that we do it in. And I think what bothers me about you doing it is that you're saying, well, let's take this thing and then make this the higher one and then call all these other things that word. And I think that it's useful to be articulate and to call things, have just specific words to talk about specific things. So, and I think one time we talked about this, and I was like, well, then what would you change? How would you refer to Christianity? And you were like, well, I would call it like a theistic religion, but I would just call sports like, a religion generically. And I just don't like that wording structure, I guess. But do we agree on the substance of it?
No, everything you said, I disagree with.
Okay, excellent. Perfect.
Not everything you said, but I did not hear any convincing reason why not to use religion in the way that I do. Because the
epistemic validity of a theistic faith is based on unfalsifiable truth claims. And that's my central problem with religion. There is no
belief system that lacks unfalsifiable. Every belief system has unfalsifiable truth claims. There's any statement you make when you break it down to the axioms are ultimately unfalsifiable.
I don't agree with that. I think that you can break things down to a point where you have to start from an axiom.
Let's try this.
You have to start from an axiom.
You're terribly wrong. Make a moral statement of any kind that is not dependent on a religion.
It's not dependent on a religion. I mean, any moral statement that I can give is going to be based on an axiom of my preferences.
That is unfalsifiable.
That's not what that means. But okay, I get your point. But it's not.
What do you mean that's not what it means?
No, it's not that. So for a thing to be unfalsifiable.
Murder is bad.
Yes, I agree. Because we
Why? Why is murder bad?
Well,
because God said so eventually.
I'm a moral anti-realist, so I don't believe that moral facts exist, but I do believe that preferences exist. And whenever we say that murder is bad,
it's more like saying boo murder.
Yeah,
that's what Alex O'Connor says.
It's more
which makes sense.
It's more like we're saying that we don't like murder because we don't want to be murdered. We don't want to murder people, so we want to say that murder is bad. And we ask other people, hey, do you agree? Are you not going to kill us? And if they say no, we're going to kill you, then
it's so funny. Okay, it's so
we can't coexist. But if they agree, then we get to be friends. So that statement is based on an axiom that is based on a feeling and a value. But for like unfalsifiability generally in nerdy philosophy is reserved for truth claims, where it's like you can't prove or disprove this statement's truth value. But because I'm a moral anti-realist, I don't believe that moral claims have truth values. They're just statements of preference. If that makes sense. Bless you. Get rid of those demons, Paul. You have so many of them inside
I'm allergic
of
to
you.
bullshit. Did you watch the Jordan Peterson Sam Harris debates?
I did.
This is the Jordan Peterson Sam Harris debate, and you're taking the Jordan Peterson side. Is that a fact? Suffering's bad.
I don't think I'm taking the Jordan Peterson side.
To say that suffering is bad, Sam Harris would claim that's a fact.
So I disagree with both of them on that. I think that Sam Harris has.
Of course you do.
Sam Harris.
I wish you were there to correct both of them.
I wish I should have been. I would have spanked both of them quite properly and quite swiftly. I do think. No, I think that Sam Harris believes in objective morality, which I don't. I'm not clear on his meta-ethical position, but I think Sam Harris is a moral realist, which I just find totally indefensible. He believes that moral facts exist independent of human preference, which I don't. But I think that they were both. I side more with Harris in general, but on the topic of morality, neither. But on the topic of truth, I was on Sam Harris's side because I think JP totally fumbled the ball, and he even admitted, I think like last year or 2 years ago, that he was more concerned with winning in that debate than actually listening, and he has since reflected on it and changed his position. I believe he said that to Matt Dillahunty. So even the Lobster King can learn. That's the message here. Hold out and have faith in people, even if you hate them, because eventually they might just come around, but they won't if you're mean to them. So don't be mean to Jordan Peterson. He's had a lot of benzos.
That's fair.
You know.
This has been a phenomenal podcast.